What's up, everyone? Welcome to the video. I do apologize for the voice. I realize it sounds a bit off, but just gonna have to deal with it this week. But we are talking prize picks for week 9 of the NFL season, just taking a look at 3 to 4 props that stand out the most to me as of right now on Saturday morning. And what I'm simply doing here is trying to find the best value on prize picks compared to a book like DraftKings, or just trying to find some players that I think their numbers are a bit too low given the matchups or the performance they've had recently heading into this weekend. But anyway, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Pennell. I usually break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel, but I do like to dabble into the prize pick streets because I live in Florida. I can't bet legally here, but what I can do is play over on prize picks, which is a great mixture of fantasy sports and prop betting. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend it to anybody, but I'm sure you all play it because that's why you're here. But if you are someone that does play DFS, I do cover videos on that if you ever want to check those out. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the one thing you can do in return for me, just a very small favor, but you can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit that bell so you can notify whenever I post new content each and every single week. And if you have any questions, concerns, or funny comments, you can leave them down below. Starting us off with our first prop, it's a player that can be very boom or bust. He's not someone I typically like to roster too much in DFS, but he is going to garner a lot of ownership this weekend. It's mainly due to the matchup here, but we are looking at Aaron Jones and actually like taking the combined rushing and receiving prop at 93.5 yards. I like taking the over here. He's at 28.5 receiving yards on the DK Sportsbook at minus 135 to hit the over. He's also at minus 120 to hit the over on his 65.5 yards rushing prop. The only problem with Aaron Jones is he always has to split time with AJ Dillon, which can make things a bit annoying, but I do think he can be efficient enough with the touches that he gets in this game to be able to go over 100 total yards, which would put us over that 93.5 yard threshold. But if you're looking at his average numbers on the season, he's currently sitting at 12.5 carries per game, over 71 rushing yards, which is actually very efficient. We're talking nearly 6 yards per carry on the season, which is excellent. He's also seeing close to 5 targets per game on a 14% target share. That's currently sitting at 24 receiving yards per game. So even if he just hits his averages, that's putting it just over that 93-yard threshold. But when you factor in such a good matchup here versus the Detroit Lions that are currently 30th DVA versus the run, 29th versus fantasy running backs, allowing a massive 120 rushing yards per game. Not too much in the receiving department, only 24 receiving yards per game, but just because they're getting burned so much on the ground. But Aaron Jones, great pass catcher running back, and they're going to use him in this offense. It's a 3.5 point spread here. Should be pretty back and forth. If this was a massive spread here in the Packers' favor, I would worry more so about AJ Dillon getting some more burn at the end of the game. But if this game can stay close, I think Aaron Jones is in for a really big game here. And if they happen to be trailing, we could see him using the passing game even more than we expect. So loving him here, all formats. If we want to take the over on the rushing, I'm fine with that, or the receiving, but I like combining the two because I could easily see him getting over 100 total yards in this one. And I don't want to miss out if it happens to be the majority of it on the receiving game or the rushing game. I'd rather just get both here. Now, I do want to give a fair warning here. I have given out 7 prize picks props the past 2 weeks. They've all hit besides 2, and they were both versus the Lions rushing defense. I used Raheem Mostert last week. He was very close, missed it by a couple of yards, his rushing prop. And then the week prior, I used Zeke versus the Detroit Lions defense, and he missed his prop by just a couple of yards. It's been very close each time, but we will see what happens. I think we're in for a good spot here, but you have been warned, but hopefully third time's the charm. And moving on to our second prop here, we're going with another running back, and it's going to be Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. His prop seems a little bit too low in this spot. I thought it was going to be in the 80s. We currently have him at 77.5 over on Prize Picks, and the same can be said for over on the DK Sportsbook, currently minus 120 to hit the over here. But the number seems a bit too low versus Jacksonville rush defense. I know they haven't been really giving up too much in the rushing yardage department, but they're still not a great run defense. I mean, DVOA-wise, they're currently 20th versus the run, and they're also 26th versus fantasy running backs. Now, most of the damage has been given up through the air, which they're allowing over 7 catches per game and 53 receiving yards and only 85 rushing yards per game to running backs. But Josh Jacobs, I mean, I'm going to be kind of surprised if he doesn't get you over 80 rushing yards in this game. On the season, he's averaging nearly 100, currently at 96.4 on the year with 17 carries per game and 5.6 yards per carry. If you wanted to be a little bit safer, maybe you can take the combined, like we did with Aaron Jones with the rushing and receiving prop, but I think he can get you 77 on the ground here in the spot versus Jacksonville. They are favored in this game. They're on the road, 24.5 implied team total here for the Raiders, but 1.5 point favorites. I love both running backs in this game. Travis Etienne, his prop's a little bit higher, currently sitting at 80.5, but Josh Jacobs, for a team that wants to run the football, besides last week where they got blown out versus New Orleans, the 3 weeks prior, 143 yards on 20 carries versus Houston, 154 yards on 21 carries versus the Chiefs, and 144 yards versus Denver on 28 carries. If they're not getting blown out, they will run the football. But when they were facing New Orleans, they didn't score 1 point. Derek Carr was terrible. Devontae Adams didn't do absolutely anything. And only had 10 carries for 43 yards, which over 4 yards per carry still isn't terrible. It's not near 6 that he's been at this year. But assuming this game stays a lot closer, which I would expect them to win this game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, over 77 yards is not going to be that difficult for Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to get close to that century mark, and I honestly wouldn't be too surprised if he hits the over on that. And the great thing about Jacobs is you don't really have to worry too much about him splitting snaps. Besides last week, we only played 55% of the snaps because they were getting absolutely blown out, where Amir Abdullah saw close to 35% of the snaps. The weeks prior, 80%, 81%, 89%. Like, you don't really have to worry about anybody else stealing touches, which is great for him. So if he's going to get you 20 plus carries on the ground, I think that number is easily attainable. But really quick, guys, if you are a first-time depositor over on PrizePicks, promo code CPEN will get you an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. There's no strings attached. It is free money. Use that to your advantage, either at PrizePicks.com, or you can use the link down below in the description or in the pinned comment down below. And they usually have a ton of promos that you can take advantage of, so you just have to keep your eyes open for that. But anyway, moving on to our third and final prop here, we're looking at a stud wide receiver, arguably the best one or the most talented one in the NFL. But we're looking at Justin Jefferson, who's currently sitting at 90.5 yards for his prop versus the Washington Commanders, which is a little bit higher than it is on DraftKings. That's currently sitting at 87.5. And normally I would not chase these, but to be honest, I didn't see a lot of props I liked on PrizePicks this week, so maybe I'm reaching a little bit here. But I would be kind of shocked if he doesn't get over 100 yards in this matchup. The Commanders have not been very good defensively versus wide receivers this season. Now that they're facing Justin Jefferson, I would say it's going to be a pretty tough task to limit him to under 90 receiving yards in this one. They're currently 28th DVA versus the pass this season, which is the 5th worst, 23rd versus fantasy wide receivers, and allowing over 170 receiving yards per game, specifically to the wide receiver position. If you're looking at Jefferson's numbers on the season, averaging 107 in the yards department, nearly 10 targets per game, close to a 30% target share, and a 38% market share of the team's air yards. And if you're looking at his game log, he's actually hit this yardage prop in 5 out of 7 games this year. He had 98 yards last week versus Arizona, 107 versus Miami, 154 versus Chicago, 147 versus New Orleans, missed it versus Detroit of all teams in Philly, but then in week 1 he had 184 yards. So I would say the numbers are in our favor here. Again, I don't usually like chasing numbers that are a little bit higher on PrizePicks compared to DraftKings, but like I said, wasn't seeing too many props I liked, so I figured I'd go with one of the studs here that I feel pretty comfortable with. But with that being said, that'll be it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. If you do play DFS, I do post videos for that you can check out each and every single week. And this is the NASCAR Cup Series Championship. So if you've never played before, this is your last time to get in until February. But I wish you all the best of luck. Hopefully I feel better soon so I don't sound too terrible in these videos. And I'll see you all next time.